Assalamu alaikum. The book we have chosen for review is My Feudal Lord. My group members are Mariam, Saria, Manur, Khatija and me, Muznaid Bai. This book is an autobiography of Tehmina Durrani. So let's talk a little bit about the author. Tehmina Durrani belonged to a very famous and influential family of Pakistan. She is currently the wife of Shehbaz Sharif. She is a social worker and has also worked alongside Abdul Sattar Ethi. I'll be covering chapter 1 of this book, which is titled as Loin of the Punjab. This book highlights her marriage with Mustafa Khar and what kind of struggles she has to face with her. It all started from her childhood as how she suffered and got neglected by her mother due to her dark skin and the strict environment, although she always obeyed her mother. But she came out to be a rebellious kid when she stood her ground to marry her first husband Anis, who was more than 10 years older than her, and showed her so much affection for Tehmina that Tehmina accepted the proposal. Moving fast forward, during all this tenure, Tehmina's father got prisoned in Bhutto's government, and as soon as he came out of prison, they planned to move to England, but after setting Tehmina's wedding with Anis. Unfortunately, a few days before the marriage, she realized that she is not in love with Anis, but she has to marry him because she has no other choice. She met Mustafa Khar in an official party and fell in love with him. Who was Mustafa Khar? Mustafa Khar belonged to a feudal system and supported feudalism. He was known to have a very high political figure, but not so reputable personality, as he was involved in many women. Tehmina Durrani, along with her husband, as I said before, met her in an official party and they started to have an extramarital affair, although they both were married and had kids from their spouses. Mustafa Khar's wife, Sherry, warned Tehmina about how brutal Mustafa is, but she did not listen to her and kept her marital affair. The rumors about the relation spread and finally Anis made Tehmina confess about the affair and she demanded divorce and got it in 1976, but handed over her daughter to him for some time. During all this fuss, Tehmina's mother also visited Pakistan and tried to talk to Tehmina and grounded her in her grandmother's house in Lahore. But soon Tehmina's family cut off all ties with her as she defamed her family. Sooner she went back to Karachi and started living off with her daughter and tried to cut off all knots with Mustafa Khar as she heard about Mustafa's many affairs. Sometime later, she went to Umrah to get pure when she got a revelation to marry Mustafa Khar in order to clean her name. When she came back, she married Mustafa Khar in Multan on 25th July 1976 and stayed there for months alone, and Mustafa Khar would visit him every now and then due to political reasons. They kept their marriage a secret to avoid any kind of scandal in his political matters, but later their marriage was announced openly and she came back to Lahore and both wives were together and Sherry was pregnant during that time. It was then when Sherry again warned her about his husband's true face, but she did not believe it until she herself saw Mustafa beating Sherry over minor details, and later when the baby was born, it died due to some severe illnesses and rumors were spread that Mustafa killed the baby, although that was not true, and there was a time when Sherry got divorced from Mustafa. It was not a very long tenure of marriage when she also became the victim of brutal beating by Mustafa Khar over little issues, and was then when she finally saw the true face of Mustafa. She thought that if he was a patient of schizophrenia, sometimes being very polite, loving and nice to her, and sometimes beating her to death. After 1.5 years of marriage, she got pregnant and was forced to get heavy meals and even get violently beaten by Mustafa even when she was pregnant, which did not cause her only physical pain but also psychological damage as well, which she was supposed to hide from not her family but also from Mustafa's mother, who was living with them at that time. During all this time, Mustafa got offered to join People's Party by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto for the political survival. His political tenure was continued during all this time, facing ups and downs, and once the house was taken over by army as per order of General Ziaul Haq, who imposed martial law. He got imprisoned and was freed few days before her daughter was born. And now Tehmina was not just afraid of protecting her own self, but now her daughter too, as Mustafa would throw the baby or be merciless with the baby as well. Due to some political issues, he had to flee away the country with his wife and ordered Tehmina to leave few months older daughter behind. So Tehmina felt really heartbroken and lonely, first leaving her first daughter with ex-husband and now the second daughter away from her in Pakistan. And with a very heavy heart, Tehmina left the country with her husband.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam Tanveer and now I will continue this book review. Chapter number 2, The Law of the Jungle. In this chapter, the author tries to commit suicide. She was tired of the constant nagging and beating of her husband. She tried her best to make her marriage work, but as the author describes, the marriage was already falling apart. And even if she tried her best, she could not save her marriage, as her husband was now interested in her younger sister Adila. Even the author's parents were not supporting her at that time. As the author describes, since the beginning, she and her siblings would complain to their mother about Adila and she would just brush it off, as Adila was her favorite daughter. Even though the author was now pregnant with her second child, she still wanted to end her life, as according to her, this was the only way out of this misery. But her attempt to kill herself did not go as planned. After she took her father's pills, she was immediately rushed to the hospital and was out of critical condition. Even her unborn child survived through this incident. The author was constantly tortured by her husband. Her husband would verbally and physically abuse her, and she, like a perfect wife, endured the torture. Her mental peace was ruined. She felt like a prisoner in her own house. Her mental peace was ruined. She felt like her own home was like a jail for her. She could not discuss about the abuse of her husband with her parents. She could not divorce her husband, or else she would lose everything, which is her children. She would just bear everything like an obedient wife and daughter. Even after the whole truth was revealed that her husband had an affair with a 15-year-old sister, Adila, she still believed her husband lies, as she believed she had no other option. She had to do this for her children. The couple pretended to be the perfect host and hostess of the house when people used to visit them. They showed the whole world that their married life was a happy one, but in fact, it was far worse than that.
My name is Aya Beg, and now I will discuss the remaining chapter 2 of the book My Feudal Lord. Swinging in the pendulum, Tehmina had to make a choice, and though disgusted, she chose Mustafa Khar just for her children. Tehmina started to repel Mustafa. When Mustafa tried to hit her, she fought back, and this time she chose the strategy of indifference. At that time, they were still on move and in exile. Struggles to overthrow Zia was on peak. Ahmadi movement had started. Mustafa was rising to fame, but the time took turn, and Mustafa's plan to overthrow Zia burned to ashes. His dream shattered, and everything went astray. With time, Tehmina had also mustered up the courage and stayed calm. She started to fight back and expose Mustafa's action to people. Tehmina couldn't take it anymore. The betrayal of her husband and his obsession with her has ruined everything. In the middle of it all, Tehmina decided to leave the Mustafa Khar. Her brother also helped her in this whole process, but Mustafa pleaded her, and in the end she gave in on the basis of a contract that gave her all the legal rights to end the marriage. But again, Mustafa went back to his old self. Tehmina once again decided to leave him, and her whole family stood beside her. Mustafa played a dirty game by taking the children away from Tehmina, and she broke to pieces. She just had her youngest and was reunited with her first daughter after 9 years. Mustafa won again in bringing her back, but it was not love, it was just concern. Tehmina Durrani has marvelously chosen the name of this chapter, as everything roams around and is wrapped in this one particular sentence, the law of the jungle. Mustafa Khar, a perfectionist, abusive, manipulative, flirty, a non-sympathetic and a non-empathetic man, ruled over the life of a girl who was in love with him. Tragically awestruck in every aspect, he shattered her into many pieces, which she struggled to grow back. This chapter portrayed many aspects that went just before our eyes, and we failed to recognize the bittersweetness concealed with life. A feudal lord and their honor before everyone and everything have what destroyed them and the immediate people around them. A person is a pathetic being full of sins, having a mere sense of gaining power, which he always uses almost for his own benefit. The consequences wait ahead us all in line, and we must deal with it in one way or another. Tehmina Durrani carefully portrayed and delivered the dormant and the submissive personality aspects of each character in her story, including herself, identifying the inner source and sense which was the beloved motherland Pakistan for them. But the journey was full of thorns and broken-willed battles for both of them in their own way. She identified that the right step has to be taken at the right time, or else the deathbed of dreams always stays behind. The human nature, the loss of love, trust, and respect, which are the basis for every relationship, are beautifully portrayed by her in her unfortunately bemused and fearful life. Thank you.
My name is Khadija Asif, and I will talk about the last chapter of this book, which is known as Lioness. So basically, in this final part of the book, Tehmina Durrani realizes her capabilities as well as potential while battling in the country for Mustafa when he was imprisoned for political reasons. However, after coming back from jail, Mustafa turns into the same individual again, and at last Tehmina Durrani assembles the courage and makes a decision to divorce him. In the final part of the book, Tehmina Durrani put an end to her married life as well as all of her agonies and suffering in her life. She depicts that how with the help of her words, she enlightens people regarding her misery, pain, and this helps her to awaken the Lioness sleeping in her. She also wrote her autobiography where she exposed all of his wrongdoings. Then the new liberated Tehmina, born out of endurance operations, she says that silence condones injustice, breeds subservience and fosters a malignant hypocrisy. Mustafa Khar and other feudal lords thrive and multiply on silence. Muslim women must learn to raise their voice against injustice. This novel throughout aims to exhibit the suffering of a woman who keeps on being caught in the partial and male-centric culture, no matter whether she is from the upper class or from the lower class. According to Tehmina Durrani, women have consistently been made to endure disappointments, dissatisfactions, and frustrations which basically emerge from the social restrictions. In our culture, it is instructed to every woman to remain quiet, even if she is a victim. She should not open up to the world with any personal crisis which may hurt the so-called honor of her man. She mentions that every woman has to suffer in the society until she evokes the lioness in her, and this book is especially for those women who suffered in this biased and male-centric culture. Initially, this book was derided, but with the passage of the time, the book became an instant hit among the readers, particularly women. I am very glad that there are women like her who are not given to the biography, rather she fights back and challenges the man-centric culture. However, her third marriage to the feudal lord questions her narration of whether what she said was true or it was an exaggeration.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Manur and I'll continue the rest of the review of this book. So in the final and the third part of this book, we saw that there was an outbreak of Tehmina Durrani to end her sufferings and miseries. The lioness in her woke up and she took courage in her own decisions. She depicts that how a woman should stand against the wrongdoings that happen with her, because in our society, women are being dominated by men and they are being used as a tool to fulfill the bodily desires and to continue the generation only. This whole novel depicts the miseries of a woman that she has to face in this society. In the patriarchal society that we live in, women are made feel inferior to men in any way or in every way possible, no matter the status. But this book is highly recommended to those who want to rank up the status of the women in our society or want to acknowledge them as individuals of this community. Because this book depicts the story of a brave woman who suffered a lot throughout the years, but she at the end took stand for herself to end suffering that she could not bear anymore. As Tehmina Durrani said herself, I found an inner strength to fight for myself. It was clear nobody else would. Keeping in mind all the parts of this book, there is one very important aspect that one realizes while reading this book critically, and that is the psychology of Tehmina Durrani and her persona. The story is told in her point of view, and it poses many questions and discussions to not only know her story, but more importantly, it makes people think what they think about the male dominance in our Muslim society. Should there be any change in the role of a person who is a politician and a husband simultaneously? Should there be a change in the mindset of the people who always dream about becoming feudal lords who seem rich and happy on the outside but are very shallow and poor from the hearts? So all these questions and discussions are evoked by the last and final chapter. This seems like a conversation between a psychiatrist and a mental patient, where Tehmina Durrani is acting as a mental patient and readers are the psychiatrists answering the questions that are being posed by her. Another very important aspect of this book is that this book shows sometimes that Tehmina Durrani is not the wise one, because she fell a prey to the deceptions that were painted by Mr. Khar a lot of times. She was prone to falling in his traps every time, and she lost his mind games as well. Although the outbreak of her proved to be very fruitful for her, but this story shows no point of view of Mr. Khar, which makes it a very biased story in my opinion. The author had some shortcomings as well, which were felt while reading the book, and those were that she enjoyed being the wife of a feudal lord. She enjoyed the luxury, she splurged a lot in terms of monetary aspect. In the end, she left the husband because she could not endure the pains and sufferings anymore. But she married a feudal lord again. This point is hard to swallow for me because having read all about the greatness of the author, she was oppressed by her husband, but as per my opinion, her decision was no different from what was imposed on her when she married Mr. Khar. But overall, this book is one of those many books that are a step towards breaking the stereotypes that are associated with women, and it's a sign of freedom of expression and the freedom of choice by a woman who became inspiration for many to put a stop to their miseries. Initially, this book was bashed out by many for showing the dark secrets of the feudalism in our society, and that too by a woman. That is very unacceptable for us, apparently. But later on, this book received international recognition, and it became a major hit amongst audience, especially women. So this book has been liked by many in the foreign countries as well, and it's a great one. And this was all from our side. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay home. Allah Hafiz.